Welcome. Congratulations on making it on the course. What I want to do is just provide you a quick little summary video of kind of going over, some of the things that you should identify by working through the course, as well as some, tips and tricks and some common mistakes that I see through a lot of my students as they're working through these problems. First of all, when we're looking into solving by a difference of two squares, one of the first mistakes that I see is not factoring something out. All right, because remember, what you're trying to do is you're trying to determine 0 equals ax squared minus b squared, right? So we're trying to determine, what are our squared terms for our coefficient a and for b. And sometimes if we don't see a square number, we say, oh, well, I can't solve this by difference of two squares. So make sure you factor your GCF, all right? Always see if you can determine if you can factor out your GCF. And the second most common mistake that I see what students do is they do the sum of two squares. We cannot factor using the difference of two squares method of our factoring technique when we have, a squared plus b squared. Okay, so you cannot factor it using the same technique. You're going to have to you have to use the square root method if it comes up to something. So therefore, if you have something like ax squared plus b squared, we're not going to be able to solve it using the difference of two squared method. Some of the kind of tips and tricks, besides just identifying your numbers that are going to be squared numbers, one thing that I always like to do, especially when I'm dealing with some numbers that's in a crazy formula, and let's actually use some different techniques. Let's see, let's actually use a number. Let's say I have 9x squared minus 25. All right. Notice that I have, this is my squared term minus my other squared term. I'm going to go towards a traditional difference of two squares, which is a squared minus b squared. And you probably learned this when you're just learning to factor, not even solving by factoring. So one of the main things that you want to make sure you do in this case is set each of these, that is a, and that's your b squared. So I could say a squared equals 9x squared, and b squared equals 25. Forget about the subtraction. Just take, those are my two terms that are squared. Now I need to figure out what are they, because what is the a and what is the b? So when I'm doing this and now determining by taking the square root on both sides, I can determine that a equals 3x and that b equals 5. Now, plugging a and b into that formula, I can quickly go ahead and factor it out. So if you're having a hard time on trying to determine what is your a and b, I like to use this method and that just helps me solve the equation. Break them up into two terms since they're distance, and then solve for a and solve for b. And that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you learned a lot through this course, and I greatly appreciate you coming back and giving me any feedback. Thanks.